Bonjour, Wache Anin. Welcome to Lakehead University's spring storytelling with Isaac Murdoch. We are happy that you could join us. Denise Baxter, Indigenous class, Makwadodam, Martin Falls, and Donjaba. My name is Denise Baxter, Vice Provost, Indigenous Initiatives at Lakehead University, and I will be your MC for this event. Lakehead University respectfully acknowledges its campuses are located on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. Lakehead Thunder Bay is located on the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nation, or Nemkiwaju, signatory to the Robinson Spirit Treaty of 1850. Lakehead Aurelia is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Lakehead University acknowledges the history that many nations hold in the areas around our campuses and is committed to a relationship with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation. Before we begin, I would like to quickly run through some housekeeping issues. An important notice of audio-video recording of this spring storytelling event with Isaac Murdoch. Participants are reminded that this online event is being recorded and will be shared on our Indigenous Initiatives webpage. Thank you for joining us. All participants are muted to ensure seamless continuity throughout the event. And following Isaac's talk at 8:30, there will be a question and answer period, so you have an opportunity to ask questions. And we invite you to do so through the chat pod or the chat option. It is now my pleasure to introduce Elder Beatrice Twans Hines from Biktagong, Anishinaabe, who will share an opening prayer and song. Welcome, Elder Beatrice.
Oh, good evening. I'm just lighting the stage here. And my drum. Bonjour minois, que j'aime meshomsak, nok mesak. Then away maganak. Wabishka bebeko ji manitou equate indigenous kitchimigizi quay, indigenous gaye, makwa dudim, Biktagong donji. Hello again, Creator, grandfathers, grandmothers, all my relations. My name is White Horse Spirit Woman. I'm also called Big Eagle Woman, and I'm from the Bear Clan, and I'm from Biktagong First Nation near Pick River. And my given name is Beatrice. Gije Manitou, Shawena Mission, Nungum Gagijigat. Creator, bless me this day. Jimino Nanaga Dawain Daman. To have good thoughts. Jimino Wabamog Nije Anishinaabe. To see good things in a person. Jimino Nondawag Nije Anishinaabe. To hear good things from a person. Jimino Ganonog Nije Anishinaabe. To tell good to a person. Shigo Jimino Wijawag Nije Anishinaabe. So that I can walk with others in a good way. Miigwech Gije Manitou. Thank you, loving spirit. Wido ka weweni je bamade zewad. Help our children to live well. Wido ka wishanam chimajishkayek and help us to move forward. Miigwech Gije Manitou. And thank you, Creator, for all of us who are gathered here today. Bless all our families. Bless all those who have made this storytelling event possible. And continue to send your blessings upon Isaac so that he will continue to share those good stories with all of us. Miigwech, 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 miigwech. Okay, so I'm going to sing the clan song. So this is the wolf, the buffalo, the bear, and the eagle clans. Wapke mainkan kapinagazin. Wapke mainkan Bishawani Mishinam. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, iya, haya. Iya, iya, haya. Wapshke besheki kapinagase. Wapshke besheki bishweni mishinam. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, iya, haya. Iya, iya, haya. Wapshke makwa kapinagase. Wapshke makwa bishweni mishinam. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, iya, haya. Iya, iya, haya. Wapshke mekisi kapinagase. Wapshke mekisi bishweni mishinam. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, 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 haya. Iya, iya, haya. Iya, iya, haya. Miigwech, miigwech.
Miigwech, Elder Beatrice. And again, really appreciate you joining us this evening, taking the time to set us off on this journey of spring in a very good way. So, miigwech. It is now my pleasure to introduce Isaac Murdoch. Isaac Murdoch is from Serpent River First Nation. He grew up in a traditional setting of hunting, fishing, and trapping, and many of these years were spent learning from elders in the northern regions of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Isaac is well respected as a storyteller and traditional knowledge holder. For many years, he has led various workshops and cultural camps that focus on the transfer of knowledge to youth. Other areas of expertise include traditional Ojibwe paint, imagery, symbolism, harvesting, medicine walks, and ceremonial knowledge, cultural camps, Anishinaabe oral history, birch bark canoe making, and I think if you look right to the left of him, you'll see one hanging in the rafters. Is that right? and cultural camps. He also works with birch bark scrolls, works with youth and elders workshops, among many other things. He has committed his life to the preservation of Anishinaabe cultural practices and has spent many years learning directly from the elders. We are very pleased to have Isaac join us this evening, and I would like to welcome Isaac to the wider community and Lakehead University. Welcome.
Welcome. Wow, what a great introduction. I always tell people, don't get the stuff off the internet because it makes it sound so much more than what I really am. So people make bios of me that are not accurate, but thanks anyways for the introduction. I want to thank Elder Beatrice for the beautiful prayer and the song. That was just medicine to my ears, and it just filled my heart. So thank you so much. So first off, before I start, I just want to do an audio check. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, yeah, okay, great. So, Mazanapkan ge Goanabe Indigenous cause. My name is the man who paints the rocks. Genebe Gokshabiga Ajwat in Donjaba. I come from my home is where I come from is called the place where the serpents are painted on the rocks. And Gnoje and Dodem. So I'm from the fish clan. Anishinaabe, Nene and Dao. I am an Ojibwe man. Nimki Ajbekong, Nindao. I live at Nimki Ajbekong. And that's just a little bit about my introduction of who I am. And I guess when I think about, the stories and who we are as Anishinaabe people, I can't help but always go to the very beginning of where we come from. And they say that we come from the stars, that our ancestors live in a place way up in the stars, in Spiming. And that's where all of our relatives are. And that's where we come from. And then when we come here to Earth, to be a part of the sacred lodge here on Earth, we're told that this is a gift, that this world here is a gift, and that we have work to do here. Because where we come from, it's so beautiful that, coming here is a gift, because here we can feel things that we can't feel in the spirit world. So we're offered this gift to come here. And they always say that, to get here, we have to enter through 4 sacred powers. The Anishinaabe didn't want to come here. They loved it so much where they were that they kept turning back and saying, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. But finally, they were encouraged to go by the spirits in the sky. And they say that first power that we go through is the power of fire. And as we go through that fire of power, of that very sacred power, Shkode, that Shkode when that power of the fire, we learn something there. And then we keep traveling. And we go through the power of Nebe, of water. And then as we keep traveling, we go through that sacred hoop of life. And we go through that power of air, Nasewen. And of course, after that, we go to the power of the earth. And that's our journey here. And that's from conception to the time we put our feet on the earth. And that's our journey to come here to the sacred lodge here on earth. And of course, when I think about my own birth, when I think about, what happened when I was born, conception happened. A fire was lit. I was immersed in my mom's belly in that power of water. When I was born, I took that deep breath and I sounded my voice out to the world. And then soon after, I was introduced to the earth. And of course, during that time, I learned a lot. And everybody does. That's our first education to this earth, is our journey here. And it's a beautiful journey. Sometimes we're not here for long. Sometimes we just come here, we bring medicine, and then we go back right away. So we're not all expected to live to be forever. We have to go back. Even babies, little babies, they come here, they bring medicine, they go back to where they come from. This is the way it's supposed to be. They were never meant to be here long. And so they always talked about how this earth is a sacred lodge. And when you look at the Mazani Nun, the scrolls, Jitwa Mazninan, the sacred scrolls. When you look at our life here, it's always in the form of a lodge. And they always talked about how we're in a sacred lodge here on earth, which is a pretty beautiful reality for us. And so in this lodge here, there are many, many things in the sacred lodge here on earth that are governing this ceremony here. And as an Anishinaabe, we're only guests here in this lodge. We're visitors. One day we'll be gone, we'll go back up there, back up into the stars. We'll make our way through the other lodge door in the west, and we'll make our way back to where we come from. But in this lodge, there's many things that live in this lodge here on earth. There's many things that live here, Masoe, all over. And when I was growing up, we always believed that the spirits that lived here, that help run the sacred lodge, are the Benabe Kweak, the mermaids. They sit in this lodge. The Memegwesiwak, the little people, they also sit in this lodge. The Issac, another type of little people, they live in this lodge too. The Bagojaniniwak, another type of little person, they live in this lodge. They have a seat here. The Nimki Benesiwak, the Thunderbirds, they also have a place in this lodge. Of course, the Chiginabegok, the serpents, also have a place in this lodge. There's lots of magic. All the Matigog, the trees, the Wesiwag, the animals. The Nesiw in the air, Minwa Nepe, all have spirit. They all have a rightful place in this lodge. And as an Anishinaabe people, we're invited in here into this very, very sacred ceremony of life. And we live our life through Begenjagewin, through the offerings that we give. And, we go through this sacred lodge knowing that none of this is ours, that we're only a part of this. We've been invited to be a part of this lodge just for a little bit. And so we respect it so much, we don't bother anything. We try to live our life in accordance to the Chinaknigewin, the natural laws that are already here. And in this ceremony, it was often said that the Anishinaabe people were to be governed by the animals. And that as our walk in life through the sacred lodge, it was the animals that were going to, lead us and make sure that we always stayed close to the original instructions of fire, of water, of air and earth. And that the animals were the ones that were to keep us in line and walking along Wabano Mikan, the sacred road from the east that goes from east to west. So the sun comes up in the east and it goes all the way to the west. And it doesn't take a step back. It keeps going forward, and that's how we're supposed to do as Anishinaabe. We're supposed to keep going forward. As soon as the lodge or the light comes into our lodge, we go out and we work. We take care of our families and our people. When the sun goes down, we go down too. That's not our time after that. That's a spirit's time. And so I've always believed that, as an Anishinaabe, that we don't have any rights to anything, but we're very pitiful. And that when we enter this lodge, we just have a responsibility to the very sacred land and the waters. And so naturally, as young children, we're put out into the forest to fast so that we could get educated about the sacred lodge. And of course, they used to put us out in the forest And we'd go fast there so that we could learn about how to live our life here on this lodge. We would get gifts. And our people knew about the underworld. Our people knew about the sky world. And they understood how that was so important for our life here. And so where I come from, you know, part of our education was to understand that there's a great power in the ground. And that this great power, it comes up in the springtime. And of course, these powers in the ground, they're very spiritual beings. There's a lake called Nsagamagaming. It means the place of the lake of the spiritual leader. In Indian, that's what it's called. And I just realized how old I am because I'm still using the word Indian. I know it's not politically correct these days, but I use the word Indian. But Nsagamagaming means spiritual leader, the place of the spiritual leader lake. And there's a white serpent that lives there. That's in Sagama. And it has a tunnel that goes down. And it comes up at a place called Kopkikmiksing. And that tunnel goes down again. It comes up at Kopkikmiksing is where they hang the place where they hang the shirts on the rocks. Then that tunnel goes down again. It comes up at Mindagweasen, the gift rock. Then that tunnel goes down, it comes up where I come from. Ginebegukshibigajwat, the place where the serpents are painted on the rock. Then it goes down, it comes up at Ginebekniashing, Serpent's Point. Then it goes across the lake to a place called Shkodeying, the place of fire. And then it zips across to a place called Asin Kick, the rock pot, because there's a big hole, big circle hole that goes into the rock. And then that tunnel goes to a place called Bodashkaing, where the wind blows in. Then it goes by Quikwigjuang, where the water goes back and forth. And then it goes to a place called Asini Swasining, the rock nest. And then it goes to Mitigug Zibing, the river of the trees. And then it crosses over to a place called Quegwegjuang, which is different than Quikwigjuang, but it basically means the water is pulling at each other. Then it goes to Nadwegojing, then the place where the enemy were hung. And then it goes to Ajdap Kissining, where the rocks lay on top of each other. And I can go on and on and on. But my point is this, is that when we were younger, we were educated about the underworld and the serpents and the mermaids and where they lived, because this was a critical part of our education, because that's where we went to fast. There was 3 places where we'd go fast, where the serpents and the underworld people lived, where the Memegwesiwak lived, or where the Thunderbirds lived. Those were places we would fast. And so all those places I told you were all the places of where the water spirits have their dens. And so as we lived our lives on the water, you know, we always had to make our offerings. And we'd always wait till this time of year right now. As soon as the water starts to break up, the Big Dipper is going like this right now. You'll see it. At nighttime, you'll see it. It'll start like this. And as the night goes, it goes like this. And, you know, it's almost like the water of Mother Earth breaks. And all those under beings, those things that live in the ground, they're all getting prepared for their season. And so as an Anishinaabe, we always used to have to make offerings to them at these special places I told you. And we'd also have to go fast at those places. And, you know, one of the offerings that we used to make, Zen Ba Matigun Sak, which means ribbons and little sticks. And we used to carve these sticks about maybe this long, maybe. We used to carve them and keep the peelings of those sticks. And then we used to take the shavings and we used to get a piece of hide, moose hide or deer hide, and we used to bundle those sticks up. And then we used to get that red paint and we used to make a line across it. And we used to make a line across our head from left to right, because that's the way the sun goes, like that. And then we go to the water and our family would make an offering like that to those spirits. And they'd take each one of our clothes. Maybe they'd just take a little piece like this and they'd cut a little piece off and they'd put it in that bundle so that the water spirits would know that a payment was made on that person's behalf. And so the spirits of the water would know, you know, to keep that person safe, that payment was made. And so that they would always be safe. Or sometimes they just take off their whole shirt. I'm not even kidding you. I seen it a long time ago. They'd take off their whole shirt. I'm not going to take off my shirt for you right now, though. But that's what they used to do. They used to take off their shirt. They'd go like this. They'd take that shirt right off. And they'd go hang it at a tree at one of those places I talked about. And they'd put tobacco there. Each one of those places has pictographs. And they say that the paint itself is the blood of the battle between the spirits, the thunderbirds and the serpents. And during those battles, that blood leaks to the ground. And us Anishinaabe, we dig for that because we know it's sacred. And we paint ourselves with it and we paint everything else with it because we know it's a very powerful medicine. And it's through that struggle that they have, the serpents and the thunderbird, that we have everything. That all of our, so much comes from that struggle of life between them. And so we know that as Anishinaabe people, we never ever pick sides. We have no power to control their battles. We can't stop anything, but we respect that what happens in the sky. And so as Anishinaabe, we'd take that paint, that sacred earth, and we'd make paint out of it. And what they used to do is they would take some of that red earth called ornament, and they would grab something very, very sacred. Nime Kwan is what it's called in Indian. It's like when you boil a sturgeon head and you get all that gooey stuff. You add that gooey stuff to that ornament, that red clay, and then you cook it. And then there's another ingredient that goes in there, the ornament. And then of course some urine, some wheeze up, they call it. And of course they would make the paint. And only special people that were gifted, that knew that the stories or knew that had the gift of that paint were able to do that. It wasn't something that everybody was just able to do. And so people that had that gift, they would carry that paint in their bundles and all the stories about them. And the power of that paint, the power of red. For Anishinaabe, the red is not a color, it's a power. And so in that red lives a lot of things. For us, that, as Anishinaabe, that represents the southern direction. And, the sun is at its strongest in the south. And so it's a very, very powerful color. And when we put that red on our face during the springtime, what we're doing is we're trying to act like the sun, strong, never taking a step back. We keep working hard and we keep traveling spiritually to the west through our life. And that was a very, very sacred thing. Of course, Indian Affairs banned face painting. It never really came back. But you see our old pictures of our people always painted. You read all the journals and the diaries of all these old things. Our people were always painted. But during colonization, that disappeared. And of course, it never really fully came back. And but it needs to come back. Because right now, it's very important that we don't conform to what society wants us to be, because we're accountable to the people and the spirits in the sacred lodge. And we were given instructions and a way of life here in this lodge. And it would be very disrespectful not to follow through with our original instructions and all the gifts that we were given. And that's how I see it. The sacred lodge is our biggest healthcare system. It's our biggest education system. And this sacred lodge here on earth in the forest, we have the greatest teachers. Everything is there that we need. As Anishinaabe people, our whole everything comes from there. But we're in a changing time and we're in a confusing time. And so I'm going to tell you about the spring, what I know. I don't know a lot about it. Don't let the bio fool you. Like, that bio is fake and phony. Never get a bio off the internet. I'm not that person in that bio. I almost feel embarrassed. But anyway, in the springtime, that's when we make our offerings. We make that bundle. And we start making our way to the lake. And of course, it was, where I come from, it was done by either the man or the woman, or the in-betweeners, whoever. It was according to the dreams, their own personal relationship. A lot of the grandmothers would do it on behalf of their family, or sometimes it was a spiritual person of any kind would go do it. And there was many different kinds of water bundles that they would make, and they were not all the same. So there was no right or wrong way when it came to making a water bundle in the spring. I know several of them that they used, and some of them were used for particular reasons. Sometimes they'd make a raft out of birch bark or a little canoe. Sometimes they'd make a raft out of sticks. Sometimes they'd take that hide and they'd put stones in there and tobacco and fish, and they'd sink it to the bottom of the lake, in the middle of the lake, wherever that hole was. There was many ways. They would leave their clothes at where they lived as offerings. There's many different ways to make those offerings to the water spirits. And this right now was the time when they did it. And, they say that once you do that, you don't look back. You don't look back because you don't want to see what those spirits that might grab that. You can die if you look at them. They're so powerful that if you look at them, you can even die. That's why I was told don't look at them. Or maybe one of those spirits in the water thought you were handsome, a cutie pie. And if you looked at them, they could take you to be your husband or your wife. That's what I was told. So, but I'll tell you, one time we made an offering like that. And I remember seeing an eagle coming, and the eagle was flying towards us, and it casted its shadow over everybody that was lined up. The shadow is a powerful thing. Our body is made up of a shadow too. That's part of our spirit. But anyway, that shadow, that eagle casted its medicine, its shadow on all of us, and that water offering was made. It used to go right in the water. And we started to walk away. They said, don't look back. But guess what I did? I looked back because I'm bad like that. I was only young. So I looked back. And that water bundle that was there, all I seen was a big bubble come up. Great big bubble. And that offering was just yanked down real quick. But then after that, I started to get weird dreams. I started to dream about this beautiful woman. And these dreams were powerful. And so one day I was on the canoe, and my grandmother, I told her what happened. She said, you better stay away from that lake. I told you not to look at those things over there. One of them might think you're handsome and might take you. But I'm a bush Indian. What am I supposed to do? Not go to the lake? My whole life was on the lake. Everything is on the lake. So anyway, it was springtime. And the suckers started to come up. As soon as those buds start to come out on the trees, on the poplar trees, those suckers will just come up those creeks. And of course, when you're young, that's your favorite time. I mean, when I was a kid, that was our favorite time. That's when we had fun in the bush all the time. But anyway, I'm in the bush and I'm getting all these suckers. And, I used to snare them. I used to put a rabbit snare at the end of a stick. And I used to snare them like that. Then all of a sudden, I thought, I'm going to go canoe up the lake a little bit. So I jumped in my canoe and I started paddling. And you know what? I seen something on the lake. There was an island. I know that lake like the back of my hand. I know every spot, every place. I know. But guess what? That island was never there before, a little rock island. Never there. There's no way that little island could be there. And there was a woman on it. And she was waving at me. Majan, Issac. She's calling me over. A very beautiful woman. I started to freak out. I started to think about what my grandmother said. Maybe and there was no canoe on that island. So I got panicked and I started to paddle back. All of a sudden, a wave started to push me towards her. And there was a rope on the end of the canoe. So I was close enough to the shoreline where I jumped right into the water. I panicked. And I started to swim and I started to drag that canoe to the shoreline. I just barely made it. I took that canoe up and I walked through the forest back home. And I told my grandmother. She said, see, I told you, you're not supposed to bother. You're not supposed to look back at those things. Maybe she's seen you and she thought you were a handsome man. That's what she said. She goes, you're lucky you got away. So she says, I'm going to go speak to her. That's what she said. I'm going to go speak to her. So I said, what do you need from me? She says, I need tobacco. And I need a nice, beautiful little piece of hide about 1 foot by 2 feet and a Mickey, a whiskey. I said, okay. I said, okay, I'll give that to you. That's what you want. That's what I'll give to you. So I gave that to her. And she went to the lake, and on my behalf, she made petitions. And she made an offering, a payment. She said, don't take him. He's foolish. He doesn't know anything. He wouldn't, he's lazy. He wouldn't be good for you. And that the offering was made, and I was spared. Now, I don't know if that's just like bush superstition, like Indian bush superstition. Is, you know how dramatic bush Indians are, you know? But no, that wasn't. That's real. That's real. I know that now. When you're young, you know, you're told things. And so I was always told of where these mermaids lived. And they're very powerful places. And so they say that there's the leader of the Nabequeak is a lady called Zigwanque. She's like their chief. And she's the boss of those mermaids. And that's what I was told. And I was always told, respect those things. Whenever you go paddle by where they live, because we were told where they lived in certain dens in the rocks. They'd have tunnels that go underneath into the rocks. Always put your sema there. So I'd be paddling around all the time in my canoe. Oh, there's a place. You know. And do beginnas the sema, I'd offer my tobacco. Right away. On my way back, same thing. I'd offer my tobacco. Every single time you went by that place, even if you went by it 10 times a day, you'd offer your tobacco 10 times. That's just how we lived our lives. We lived our lives through offerings all the time. And it always, spring is when the water opens up. And that's when it's a very sacred time for us. Of course, that's when we'd get right now is also when we get our maple sap, our birch sap. This is when we go get our beavers and our muskrats to eat, because they're delicious to eat this time. Or maybe we go get a bear and we eat a bear. So I'm going to tell you about a bear ceremony that I remember seeing several times growing up. People would dream about that bear, and they would get ready for this feast. And we know where their bear holes were, where the bear would den. They'd either sometimes they'd den in a tree or dig a hole in the ground. That's where they would den. And the spirit of the bear would call that chief or that hunter to go get them. And that bear would offer themselves and say, I fasted for this. And so what they used to do, you know, when you see where the snow is covered and there's a hole there, and you'll see steam coming out of that hole. When we used to trap, I used to put my mouth over that hole like this. I used to breathe in that steam from that bear, because that's medicine. that hole that's there. The bear has to have a hole, an air hole, or it'll die. It has to have an air hole. Just from its breath, that's what makes that hole. Same with beaver. A beaver also has a hole. When you look at an old beaver house in the wintertime, there's like a smoke coming out of it. Same thing, we'd go over there and just breathe that up. That's good medicine because that's their sacred breath. And when you breathe that in, you're getting something very special. So anyway, maybe a hunter would get a dream to go get the bear would call him. In this time of year, like where I am right now, there's snow all over the place yet. And they'd grab a stick, a long willow. And at the end of that willow, they would split it like this. And they'd put a little stick there like this so that it would stay open like this. And they'd shove that stick, that willow, down that hole until it started to touch that bear. Then they'd start poking it. And they'd start twisting that willow. And all of a sudden you could hear that bear waking up. And they'd keep poking it, keep twisting it. And as they're doing this, they're praying, giving thanks to that bear. And of course, the bear would come out and they would take the life of that bear. And during that time, they would have the ornament, the paint. They would used to cut strips of leather and they would decorate the face of the bear and they'd paint the face of the bear. And they would sit the bear up like in a sitting up position. And we'd roll a cigarette and we put that in the bear's mouth so the bear can have a smoke. And one time they took that out and that bear took a puff. Then what we did was we grabbed this medicine, that clay, and we covered the wound of that bear with that clay. And then we get one big stick, we tie that bear on there, and we have to carry that bear back. It's not supposed to touch the ground. And we shove the ears of that bear with cedar or balsam, and we cover the eyes of that bear so it doesn't look at us. We're not supposed to look at that bear. And that's what we do. We take the bear back, and then the whole bear is eaten up. Even the hands were boiled. The hands were singed and boiled. All the meat was boiled. Everything was taken from that, and we had to stay there. And they would sing songs about the bear and worship the bear. And they would, really praise the bear. And then all the bones would have to go into the fire. Nothing was wasted. But you weren't allowed to take the bones anywhere. And in that fire, I remember seeing it so beautiful. It was a nice big fire. The more bones you put in there, the bigger the fire got. And they used to take the medicines out of the bear, the wheeze up, like the pea bag. They'd eat the heart, but they'd cut off all the fat from the heart. And they'd use that fat, they'd make zosiganak out of it. They used to take a lot of things out of the organs. And they'd use everything from that bear, as much as they possibly could. But they always decorated that head really nice. And I remember eating the bear paw. That bear hand, Kwaninj is what they call it. It spent a lifetime digging medicines, touching all those roots and shrubs. When we ate that hand, we'd get healed. And that's what the bear wanted for us. And so we used to eat everything. But that fire, it was so beautiful. There was colors in that fire that you can't, that's not even on the computer. There's colors in there that you'll never see in your, the only way you'll see those colors if you look at that fire. I was so amazed. I always was amazed. I'd look at that fire, there was colors I never seen before. Those colors were amazing. And then we take that head back to where it was, where its den was, and we'd hang it up in the trees. And that way other bears would know that's where it could go den, because its ancestors had lived there, fasted there, and given their life for the people there. And so we'd always face that head towards where our camp was. That's what I remember about this time of year. And you know, my dad, when he did that, you know, things changed over time. And a lot of people would say, oh, gross, I'm not eating bear. But it was the Bear Clan that was doing this feast. They're the ones that were hosting it. You know, they're the ones, and they would eat it. I seen them. I seen those old men, you know, those old grandmas. They were Bear Clan. They were the ones that were doing this. But as times went on, you know, they stopped doing that. But my dad is such an Indian. He's like, I'm going to go do this anyway. I don't care what people think. I love my Indian ways. So that's what he did. You should have seen all the people come. Lots and lots of people came. There was lots. They all ate that bear. It was beautiful. And then when I got older, it was time for me to do that. Again, lots of people came. A lot of people got a lot of medicine from that. That's what I know. Those are some of the things that we did in the springtime. I know that today it's a different reality than living in the bush. But we have to remember too that you know, like today, you look at the world how it is today, and you know, where are we getting our medicine from? You know, when I was a child, they used to take the bear droppings, 1-year-old bear droppings. You know, and I used to have to eat that. 1-year-old, not fresh. Don't eat it fresh or you're going to be in trouble. But 1-year-old bear droppings. You know why? Worms. It gets rid of your worms. And plus those seeds. All those seeds are in your body. And things grow from those. There's a lot of knowledge in those seeds. But that's what we used to do. And then we also used to, this time of year, we used to take some clay, wobbegum. And we used to have to eat it so that we're going to have a strong Indian mind. 1 spoonful of that real silvery clay. Take it, eat it, and away we go. We didn't have a choice. We had no choice but to eat it. That was to help us with our mind. And then also black dirt. And then in the summertime, we'd have to eat that black dirt, a spoon of that black dirt. Because that's a very, there's a lot of vitamins in there. But in the springtime, we have to eat that clay for sure. And that would make us, because as the season changes from winter to spring, our body goes through a big change. And so we have to eat that to make things balanced again. Winters are tough, and that clade helps us transform into this new life that we're going to have. The same way that when a snake sheds its skin, we're shedding something too right now, and we're starting a new life. And it was all done by the moon. So we used to wait for this thing called Ashke Goje Win Gijigat. Ashke comes from the word Ashkabewis. It's the helper, it's the new thing, the new replacement. Ashkabewis. You know, a Goje Win means hanging in the sky. You know, so we used to wait for that day when there'd be a new helper in the sky. And what I'm talking about is the moon. So as soon as the first thunder comes, that thunder cracks the ice because it wants to get those serpents. The ice cracks. I've seen it. I've seen lightning hit the ice. I've seen it shake the ice and crack it because the thunderbirds come from the west and they want to get those, they want to eat. And so during that moon time, Ashke Gojewan, of course, we would have a ceremony and we would ask for we'd ask that the new helper in the sky to help us with being able to be strong enough to handle whatever was going to come. And they would burn all of their hair, their fingernails. They'd burn any old things that they didn't want anymore. Or maybe there was something that they just didn't, just giving off a bad vibe. You know how superstitious everybody is. You know, so they burn it at that time. And they used to cook these stones, black stones, in the fire. And they put them in a frying pan. And they'd all have to put a towel, a big blanket over us, and we have to breathe that in. Get that medicine, that new moon medicine. And so that would help us in the springtime. And there was a song. Waya ya ya waya ya waya ya ya waya ha. Waya ya ya waya ya waya ha ya waya ha. Waya ha ya yo. Ashke gojen ya waya ha ya waya ha. Ashke gojen ya waya ha ya waya ha. Waya ha ya yo. There's another verse, but I'm not going to sing it to you because I can't tell you all my secrets. But anyway, we did sing that song. And they used to make these sticks, half black and half red. The bottom of those sticks were painted red that represented the serpents. And the top part of the sticks were painted black to represent the thunderbirds. There was 4 of them stuck in the ground. And each of them had a leather tobacco tie. And those were offerings to give thanks for this beautiful life that we have here, for spring to be here. You know, for Zigwan Kwe to be able to share, you know, all the fish with us, because that's how we're going to live. How could we live without them? There's no way we could. The Gigawak was our everything. I think about those days. You know, things are so different now. I'm not that old. I'm only about 50 years old. But, you know, when I think about life how it was when I was young, portaging all over the place, hunting, just living. To me, that was being rich. To me, that was being wealthy, because we had our everything. We had our everything out there. We had our suckers in the springtime. There were so many gawak, walleye. There was so many birds that we'd eat, seagull eggs in the spring. We'd eat so many different plants, our wild onions, all of that. All the medicines that we'd pick in the springtime. Lots of rich things in the forest that made us rich. That was Bamatswent for me. I miss those days. I remember when I was 5 years old, the Indian agents came and took me and 3 of my brothers away. Mike, Frank, and Scotty. And at that time, we weren't allowed to live with our parents because if you're Indian, they'd just come and get you, and that's just the way it was. We were known as the Indian problem. And that they felt that if we were on the land, that we would, interfere with resource extraction. And that they wanted us colonized so that we'd never go back. Go into the white man education world and stay there. Enter politics or whatever. And that's what happened. And I remember the tragedy of it all, But I think today, when I look back at things, we have many things that we can learn from each other. Every race of person has something to offer. We have something to offer each other. So I always say, celebrate the diversity of everybody. Don't single people out because of their nationality. Yes, it's been hard because of what happened to us. We lost a lot because of what happened to us by the Jaganash. But we're in abrupt climate change, and the world is suffering a massive ecological collapse. The human beings are destroying the sacred lodge here. And so now we have to look past our own pain and our own hurt and our own anger. And just like that beautiful flower that grows in the springtime, we have to be beautiful ourselves. And just like how that flower lives with other flowers, we have to do that too. And we have to find the beauty in other people. And we got to start building each other up, all races. And we have to celebrate each other's diversity, celebrate their songs, their ways of knowledge, their everything. Because we have a lot of work to do in this sacred lodge. We can't leave it like this. We can't leave this lodge like this. That's not right. As an Anishinaabe, we have responsibilities. As an Anishinaabe, that's our thing. They always said that. Matigug minwa nasiwin. Inchinachagasawa kinagego inchinagade man peking. Everything is being destroyed. And we have a responsibility now to learn, to look at the beauty that's in people, everybody. And to me, that's what the spring means, is renewal. It's when everything comes together again as one, and the beautiful things happen. Just like in nature, we have to act like that, to be like that. So don't fight anybody. Don't fight everything all the time. I know that's what I did for a long time. I was always fighting everything. But instead of tearing down the things that we think are ugly, plant those seeds. Plant something beautiful. Make something beautiful. Just like what springtime does. I think that's always a good thing. You know, I don't know.
I think we just lost the connection with Isaac. So we'll just wait a moment until he's able to reconnect. Meanwhile, I'd like to invite you. I see a few people have put posts in the chat, a few questions for Isaac when he's finished speaking. So if you have any other questions that you'd like to put in the chat, our comments too, we do share these with him. And please feel free to take a few minutes to put your questions in the chat. We have about 20 minutes for Q&A after he's finished. Welcome back.
Hi.
Hi. Glad you were able to make it back.
I did. I touched the wrong button.
Oh,
And I just disappeared. Sorry about that.
that's okay. We were
But
here.
anyway, you know, I wanted to say I'm worried about the future if we don't work together. Everybody, Nishnabek, non-Nishnabek, everybody. If we look at spring and you see how water is, it starts to break and it starts to give life to everything. It has no race, it has no color. All it does is give life to everything it comes into contact with. It doesn't have any prejudice. It doesn't have any bias. It's such a beautiful way to be. And I think about that. You know, so maybe that's what Nishnabek, you know, we were always like that. Kind people, you know, very good people. We were very accepting people, you know. And so build your relationships with everybody and do whatever you can to help clean up this lodge. It's such a mess now. But we can do it. We have no choice but to do it. Or maybe our grandchildren won't be allowed in this lodge. You know. That's what the old Onwigichigewan used to say. The old stories, the prophecies about the future. As Anishinaabe people, we need to go back. Abdak Wibiskabing and Anishinaabe Atswa Nikia. Ndapnan nan niab Gidakim nan. Anishinaabe Kinagada men. Kapskabe Ndapnan nan enwing. Meanwhile, Gao Nitoying. Gawin Gago and Gashnan Migoying. Ginman Mampi and Japan. You know, we have such a strong responsibility to walk a very good way in this lodge. That's why when we had our moccasins, you know, they sew flowers on them to represent the spring and the renewal, and to make sure that we always walked in a good way, and that we walk gently and lightly. So those are good things. Springtime is a good time. It's a good time to know what we're going to do and how we're going to be. So I'm going to take a 5-minute break. That's a long time blabbing for a whole hour like that. Holy.
But it went by quickly for us.
I'm gonna grab some more water, and I'll be right back.
Thank you. I'll ask Sheila and Anna to just pause their recording for a few minutes. Well, maybe everyone wants to grab a. Now we can. Yes, welcome back.
Okay. So when I was younger, they'd always put us out to fast, probably around 11, 12 years old, and they put us out there to go get educated, and to learn about who we are, our name, what our name meant, what our clan means. And so as we got older, we kept fasting so that we could keep learning about our place in the sacred lodge and our responsibilities in here. You know, when I used to grow up with the hunters, they never ever talked about our rights. They never talked about things like that, especially the old ones. They always talked about our responsibility to our original instructions, and that this is not our lodge, that we're just guests here, and that we're not the ones that lay flags in here and say this is ours. That's not our way, because we know what lives here. All the spirits live here, and so when we fast, you know, we're finding our way in this lodge. We're gathering the knowledge, and so for me, because I never went to school past 10 years old, I was put out to fast a lot because that was part of my education. And then when I started to help my grandparents, and I was went to go live with different old people, and that was my education. And it was a good education. And we have to remember that Anishinaabe Atsuan, Anishinaabe Kendan are thinking it's not a lower standard of education. That Anishinaabe have a high standard of education. It's a high discipline of education, because it's been developed over thousands and thousands of years. Western education is only a baby. It just started. And so as Anishinaabe, we're always told that we get our education from the spirits, from the animals, from the trees, from the rivers. And that's the highest form of education that we can receive. And I also know that we're held hostage into this, poverty, politics-stricken economy, and that in order to be able to eat, because we've been systematically removed from the land, we have to go to colonial institutions, and we have to get educated in other systems so that we can participate in this economy. But that's at the same time, I encourage everybody, don't forget, who you really are. And don't ever be ashamed of the education that our people have. Because the Anishinaabe education, it was so highly disciplined that they could live their whole life and leave the lodge the same way they found it. Western education has not been able to produce a sustainable economy. As Anishinaabe people, our education, we realize that economy and ecology is the same thing. It's the same. There is no difference. But when Indian Affairs came in, they put us under the reserves. And of course, they control our economy with the programs and services. In order to be a part of that, to have a life, you have to go to school. Then you go back, you work with the bands or the schools, and that's how you make your living. But none of that takes us to the land, how we used to live. So they use poverty, and they have a system in place to remove us from the land. The globalization of Western education is wiping out indigenous knowledges all over the earth. So as Anishinaabe people, we have to start thinking about this with our own kids. In 50 years, are our kids going to be speaking the language? Are they going to know the land like the back of their hand? Are they going to know how to read the stars? Are they going to know when the fish come and go by the moon? Are they going to know about the bear holes and breathing in that good medicine? Are they going to know everything about the bush? Are they going to know what their sacred path is on that lodge? Giken manonik, going we come in on Zeno on, Gnanok in on. All the laws are being broken. And so I always think, what is going to help our children survive in the future? To me, the only thing that comes to my own mind is going back to the land. Really understanding it and reclaiming our place in that lodge, which is being, learning about that. And that's through our fasting. That's what I was told anyway. I don't know if it's true or not. I guess time will tell. But that's just what I think. So, and that's not to take away the hard work that people did to go to school. Because there's many good things. I always find the good in everything. Lots of good things came from people that went to school. But we also have to remember, too, that there's many things in the forest. That's our life. And we have such an allegiance to that. And so we have to start making our way back. We have to start making our way back home. It's time now. It's time to go back. In my mind, there's no question. We are in abrupt climate change. The world is suffering a massive ecological collapse. And more than ever, the world needs this type of education, this ancient education that's thousands and thousands of years old, that has the blueprint on how to live here on this earth. Like, it's so important that it's time that we start making our way back and we start picking up, just like what I said before, we have to go back and pick those things up. That's important. But that's my little rant to get people back in the bush. And so, like I said, springtime is a place for me. It's of renewal, but it's also a chance for us to renew our sacred responsibilities as Anishinaabe people to this earth, which means going back to it. Now, miigwech, I'll do questions if people have questions.
Great, Miigwech. Thank you.
I know
Lighting a fire under.
Yeah.
So we did have quite a few questions, one of which you answered, I believe, already. Elder Beatrice had asked how old you were when you first went fasting, and how many times did you fast, and did you have any visions?
I was put to fast at a young age by a man. His name was Aquinine. His name was Peter O'Cheese, and I was about 11 years old, and that was the first time, and I can't I lost count of how many times I did. You'd never ever. It's my life. It's my way of life. So I just don't know anymore. I don't even want to know anymore. I just don't want to do it again. That's all. Um, but that's a good question. And I did learn about things. I seen lots of things on my fast, um, which helped me today. And sometimes they don't make sense when you're young. They only make sense later on. Nothing made sense when I was young. Sure, I was learning about the plants and the medicines, you know, in the language, which was beautiful. Um, you know, but at the time, you don't think that it's important until you get older. And then now when you get older, you look back and you think, I should have listened more. I should have paid attention more. It was so important. And so when you're young, discipline is good. Not like beat the crap out of your kid discipline, but I mean like discipline, like teaching your kids how to sit still, listen, like that kind of discipline. That's important, I think, for young people. And so there was lots that I didn't catch when I was young because I just had too much energy. But hopefully I was able to capture a little bit to help me in my life, and I think it did. So I wish I would have listened a lot more and sit it still a little bit more, but it's just the way it is. Good question. Thank you, Elder Beatrice.
Thank you. Tani asked if you could speak a bit more about the in-betweeners and what are they?
Well, in our language, we believe that we don't really talk about gender in a way how they do in the English language. And so, in my belief, there's men, women, and those that are in between, or that they're there, and they don't have a definition. They're just a human being. And so I don't like to label man and women only, but we always talked about the ones that were that have a special place in that lodge, and they don't maybe they don't identify with a gender, or maybe they don't identify with how we view them. And so that's what I mean by that. In the language, it sounds a lot better. The English language will quickly complicate and turn this question into a fight. But that's what I mean. Yeah.
Would you be able
Good
to
question.
say the
Very good
Anishinaabe?
question.
Could you say the Anishinaabe word or words, phrase?
And when they talked about that, there was not one word for it. It was, they would say that like that person was a good helper. So for example, my really good friend, when we were young, he said that he was a woman, and that's the way it was, and we liked that about him. And the grandmothers liked that about him too, because he was physically strong too, so he could lift heavy things, he could do all the strong things, but also very delicate things too. And everybody went to, like, my friend could listen to problems all the time. And so one time I said, well, what do you want me to refer you to, a man or a woman? Because back in those days we didn't have the gender. It's not like how it is now. And he said, Anishinaabe, that's what I am. I said, oh, and that was it. And so there wasn't a specific word. There wasn't, not where I come from anyway, there wasn't. It's Anishinaabe. Yeah.
Good people.
But if they wanted to be called a woman, we called them Kwe.
Okay.
That's just the way it was. but very good medicine for our communities. It's very important that we uphold them and we support them and we build them up, because they're a very important part of our governance in our communities. Absolutely. Good question.
Thank you. This is a question about your art. How does art affect you, and how does it help us uphold our responsibilities and give back to the earth, Nabi, and community?
Well, I don't really consider myself an artist. Just simply because I mean, I like to do art, and I do a lot of things with hearts and stuff. Do you want to see some?
Yeah.
I'll go grab some.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Thanks for your comments, Brandon.
So I do a lot of different art.
Oh, wow. Is that screen printing, or is it ink?
That's screen printing.
Beautiful.
And so these are just images or things in my mind from stories and things like that.
Weren't the three sisters? Yes.
Yep.
Geez, thanks for sharing these with us.
Dancing Thunderbird.
Mm. Aw. Oh.
That's what being in love looks like.
It's like, my cousin always uses the term moose eyes. Ah. Mm. Wow.
So all my art comes from stories and legends that I put down on the papers. And I've been very fortunate with my art. Like I said, I don't consider myself an artist, but I've been fortunate to be able to sell my art all over the world. The Dalai Lama has bought art off of me. David Suzuki and lots of people all over get my art. I get to travel all over the world as an artist. It's unbelievable. I don't even know how. I don't even know how to do a face. I don't know how I got to do that. But I'm blessed. I was lucky. I fluked out. That's what happened. I fluked. And so, it's just one of those things that was part of my path. And so it's pretty cool because, like one time Kevin Costner called and wanted to use my art for something. And then like Leonardo DiCaprio tweeted my art out, Joaquin Phoenix, and the Black Eyed Peas used my art in one of their videos. Bruno Mars, like real, like famous people. And I'm just like I'm just a bush Indian in the bush here, living in a cabin. It's really weird. But I always, whenever I do art, I tell stories. So when I actually, like in real life, not that this isn't real life, but say if I went there, we would do things different. You know, we'd go to a lodge, a nice big lodge. We'd have ceremony in there. I would tell stories, Atsukanan, and we'd feast the spirits. You know, and then we'd look at the stars at nighttime. We'd keep going. You know, so it's different in real life, the storytelling, you know, because it's just different. This is good too because it gets people out of the gets people out, like in their mind at least anyway. If they can't literally go out, at least their mind can go out.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've done that for you tonight. Yes, any other questions?
Well, I'm just thinking Thunder Bay, the sun is down and the moon is coming up over the lake right now. And so the final question maybe is, what are our shadows?
Our shadows, that's a part of who we are. So, you know, like my grandfather used to say that our bodies are made up of three things: our spirit, our body, and our shadow. And I remember one time there was I lost you know, some people that I loved dearly many years ago in an accident, and I wasn't feeling good about anything, and I felt very sad and lonely, and I couldn't get snap out of it because, you know, sometimes when you lose people, that's how it is. It's just part of our journey. We can't always we have everybody forever, and we can't live to be forever. So those are some of the lessons that we learn. So I was going through one of those lessons, and you know, the elder that, you know, spent so much time with me, my grandpa, said, I want you to sit when the sun is coming up. I want you to pray with Sema in your hand. And when that sun comes up and and then your body makes a shadow, we want you to put that tobacco onto your shadow. And that's going to feast your spirit. That's going to feast you. You're going to nourish your own self. And that the shadow is a very important part of your own self. And so lots of times during a funeral, sometimes I'm asked to conduct the funerals. And so that's one of the things that we're always concerned about is the shadow of a person. Sometimes the shadow will wander around the earth looking for food, or it's confused, so we have to bring the shadow back to the body. That's kind of scary stuff, but that's some Anishinaabe stuff, scary stuff, just the way it is. But a shadow is a sacred thing. So nourish your shadow. Put tobacco on it. You know, be good to your shadow. That's what I was told. But that's a good question.
Right.
Thank you very, very much.
Well, I'd like to, on behalf of all of us, say Chimigwech for taking the time to join us again, to share with us, to show us your art. You know, we don't often have that privilege of seeing your art up close, which is nice, a nice opportunity for us as well. I would like to invite Elder Beatrice Twans Hines back. She's going to be doing the closing prayer. And again, Chimigwech for sharing at our spring session, our spring teachings.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a great honor to be here. And I didn't know what I was going to say or anything, but hopefully it was good for you. It was good for me. So thank you so much. It's an honor. And it's an honor to have Elder Beatrice, you know, be with us here too. And of course, for everybody for hosting this. It's just been amazing. And thanks for everybody that tuned in. I always get shy with these things, so I'm going to stop my video so people can stop looking at me. But I'm here though.
Okay. Elder Beatrice.
Bonjour. I really enjoyed listening to Isaac and his sharing, his knowledge, his wisdom, his stories from the bush. What I'd like to do is to honor that the water and the bundle that he asked us to put out, and if you can stand up and let's all of us pray to the water of the four directions. And east is that way for me, so I'm going to face that way. So if you're able to stand up, that'd be good. I'm going to push my table back here. There. Oh. Turn to the south. Turn to the west. And I just wanted to say that the words to that song are Nibiwabo Andayan, the water where we live, Akimiskwe Nibiwabo, is the lifeblood of our Mother Earth. So miigwech, and that's part of, okay, if I could remember now from the teachings that Isaac shared, that would be the second level from when our spirit decided to come down to this sacred lodge, and when we're born again, it's a second level to when we join this lodge, which is our Mother Earth. So miigwech for the teachings, Isaac. Really appreciate it. And miigwech to Denise, Sheila, Yolanda, and what's her name? Anna Chief. Also, for all the work that you do. Miigwech.
Thank you. Isaac, any final words before we wish everyone a good night?
Just, keep safe, keep praying, keep all of our people in your prayers. Prayer is a powerful thing, and just keep making your offerings. And I thank you so much. Gichi miigwech, yaya mampi giganon and guk. I'm so honored to be able to have spoken with you, and thank you very much. And Thank you. Like again, I'm shy again, so let's just miigwech.
So, Elder Beatrice Twans, Hines, thank you so much for sharing tonight and being with us, and always a pleasure. So I learned every time we get together, I learn something new, and that's part of that journey as we move through life. I'm just a quick little note, Isaac. My grandmother always beaded, like probably most grandmothers, most kokums, flowers on their moccasins, and I didn't really realize perhaps why. So I appreciated that little bit of knowledge that you shared with me, because it just brought me right back to watching her bead and wearing her moccasins still, actually.
Good.
So miigwech for that. That was really lovely. And for everyone who joined us this evening, thank you again so much for joining us. We have, I'm hoping that we'll be able to have Isaac join us again, but we're really pleased he was able to make time to spend this evening with us. And I'd just like to wish you all a beautiful spring. I hope life is good. Thank you.